Thank you very much. My brothers and sisters, I wish to thank you for the wonderful show of solidarity. Your presence here at the Trade Fair Center and earlier at the headquarters of our party to join me to submit my completed presidential nomination forms has indeed been a great inspiration. It conveys a clear message that the rank and file of our party is yearning for victory in the election of 2020. And I'm grateful to you for believing in me as the candidate who will work with you to deliver victory in that election. I thank all of you for your contribution towards our fundraising efforts. You've demonstrated that the party members, supporters, sympathizers, and ordinary Ghanaians are willing and able to contribute their widow's mite to the progress of the party. Let me urge the leadership of our party to seize this opportunity and nurture the spirit of fundraising within our party. About 2 years ago, December 2016, I faced the solemn task of conceding an election in sober acceptance of the verdict expressed by the good people of Ghana. At the end of an intense bruising contest, the people conferred the honor of their mandate on the New Patriotic Party, NPP, in earnest expectation that the incoming administration will make good on their numerous one-a-day campaign promises. I respected the verdict of the people and appreciated it for its significance. It was a hard thing to do, and it was a deeply humbling experience. I was sincere in my hopes that the new government will be successful in the great undertaking that was before them. I still am, but I was gutted by the missed opportunity to see through an agenda that I genuinely believe would address the most intractable fundamental problems that belie our nation's chronic difficulties. The loss afforded me the opportunity for a solemn reflection about a life spent in public service in many different parts. I have been blessed to play a part in Ghana's story. I found myself grateful to the Almighty God who raised me up to those heights, and to the people of this nation whose love and trust have been my constant strength through these great many years of public service. My brothers and sisters, I was at a crossroads in my life. The temptation of a return to private life was enticing. The promise of spending time with my family and close friends, a rare thing during those hectic years in office, was a very welcome prospect. And spending time away from the often vicious, unforgiving enterprise of our national politics was equally very attractive. But in those many months of contemplation, I also rediscovered the first principles of my personal and political beliefs. The tenets of my Christian faith reassured me that day in and day out, my God and Savior takes me from one degree of reflection to another. My belief in politics of personal responsibility reminds me of the need for self-appraisal at all times. And so, after much deliberation, I believe that I'm even better prepared now to carry the standard of the National Democratic Congress and the great political tradition for which it stands into the presidential election of 2020. I did not make the decision to enter the contest in isolation. I consulted broadly with all levels of our party, from the grassroots, who are our lifeblood, to the elders on whose shoulders I stand. I sought the wisdom of our chiefs and the counsel of our political religious leaders. I solicited the views of business captains and leaders amongst Ghana's trade and professional associations, as well as the broader perspective of everyday Ghanaians. They all did me the courtesy of offering me frank, constructive critique of my own strengths and my past shortcomings, as well as those of my administration and our party as a whole. In truth, the encouragement and support for my decision to seek a second full term in office from the vast majority of these persons has been overwhelming and assuring. And I wish to thank them, and indeed all of you here, for believing in my capabilities, my experience, and my passionate desire to lead our party to reclaim the trust and mandate of the good people of Ghana. Yet, I also truly respect and equally appreciate the views of those who, whether in the public space or in private conversations, express some misgivings about my decision to re-enter the political contest. I wish for all such persons to know that their advice was not lost on me, and that I indeed intend to prove myself worthy of their confidence and to assuage their fears in the months ahead. I don't promise, I prove. I'm running because even though we did not succeed in 2016, I learned a great many lessons. And yes, there is indeed a benefit from failure. The campaign tour, which I started in August, has so far taken me to the Central, Northern, Upper East, Upper West, Brong-Ahafo, Greater Accra, and Ashanti regions. And very soon, I'll be with you in the Western, Eastern, and Volta regions. My message has focused largely on internal issues such as strengthening the NDC party and building a renewed sense of purpose. The results of the 2016 elections showed a significant decline in our votes relative to the 2012 election outcome. Apathy, discontent, the feeling of neglect were some of the factors that accounted for this decline. I intend to address these, and the party structures will be used to the fullest. We will also bear in mind as I said, the party structures will be used to the fullest. We will also bear in mind the business aspects of the lives of our own people. I'm fully committed to uniting our party and will work with the party leadership to bring everyone on board. Let me emphasize that I commit myself to working closely with the structures of the party to explore innovative ways to resource the party while promoting transparency and accountability. I'll place emphasis on improving the mobilizing capacity of our vibrant women and youth wings. I'll place emphasis on vigilance with voter registration, vigilance on polling day, vigilance in results collation, and vigilance against all forms of electoral manipulation by our opponents. I also pledge to commit myself to party discipline and to make the party supreme at all times. To make the party supreme is to respect the grassroots of our party, to give honor and recognition where it is due, to let our decisions and actions reflect the broader long-term interests of all segments of the party. We make the party supreme when we accord respect to one another and are each other's keeper. I'll continue to treat all my fellow aspirants with decorum, because when all is said and done, we will need each other for the election of 2020. I commit myself to a program of mentorship to prepare our young people for positions of responsibility and to develop the next generation of NDC leaders after we are gone. I will work with the party school to deepen understanding of our ideology of social democracy, to inform policy of government and our own behavior and attitudes. I will work with the party executives to ensure that we have befitting and comfortable offices to host our secretariats at the constituency and the regional levels. I'll work with the party to seek a new engagement with the media, pursuant to the principles of truth, fairness, and objectivity. And I'll continue to tap into the wisdom of our elders and harness the vast experience of persons whose pioneering work, tireless effort, immense knowledge, and know-how in governance are recognized not only nationally but internationally. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, I offer my experience, my skill, my energy, and unyielding spirit on the campaign trail, my passion and vision to lead this party to a resounding victory in 2021. To a resounding victory in 2020 and to see an inauguration of a new NDC government on 7 January 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, especially in the sense that nothing is impossible to achieve in this life, that when setbacks come your way, you step back and you step forward again with renewed determination and move on to greater heights. To all my fellow Akatamansonians, when you elect me, I will fight hard and work day and night to ensure our victory and work to address the problems of unemployment and the very high cost of living this country is currently going through. Together, we will present our countrymen and women a renewed and reinvigorated NDC, a party ready and able to lead Ghana beyond the unprecedented economic hardships of the present hour, beyond the rising unemployment and despair of our youth, beyond the closure and collapse of financial institutions and businesses, beyond the dishonesty and nonchalance of the current administration, and beyond the family and clan syndrome that has rightly shocked and outraged so many in its scope and scale. My brothers and sisters, let me tell you something. The NPP has been in power for close to 2 years. They began their tenure with a groundswell of goodwill from Ghanaians who believed that they would keep faith with them and deliver on the litany of promises they had doled out during the campaign of 2016. And although I harbored honest doubts about the practicality of many of these half-baked promises, I hope for their success. A rising tide, after all, lifts all boats. When boats are in a harbor and the tide rises, it lifts all the boats. And so we had hoped that these promises would be fulfilled. My reservations were not born out of malice or cynicism, but out of a concern that those promises were made for the purpose of populist pandering, that they would inevitably fail to address the fundamental issues of our society. Worse still, I feared that the NPP's policy agenda would compound those problems and that their petty politics would turn back the clock of progress for which we had so long labored. The cracks in the foundation are beginning to show, and the cracks are growing by the day. We see it in our healthcare system. Its present diagnosis, the no-bed syndrome, is an indictment of leadership. All of us here are familiar with the harrowing accounts of desperately ill persons being turned away from our hospitals in urban areas for lack of hospital beds on which to treat them. I imagine there are some in this hall who have known that indignity firsthand or suffered along with their loved ones as they did. We know of the fatal consequences of this state of affairs. Without a doubt, there are chronic problems in our health system that every administration of the Fourth Republic has sought to address with varying degrees of success. Health worker shortages, inadequacy of our fiscal infrastructure, and fiscal constraints and access. These are but a few of the critical bottlenecks we have all striven to address in our period in office. My administration prioritized them. We took action to increase healthcare access through a program of building infrastructure and facilities that aspired to bring healthcare to the people's doorstep wherever they may be in our nation. Our tenure saw the completion and commissioning of several top-tier medical facilities in the country. Unfortunately, many of these now stand unattended to, monuments to the petty partisanship of the day, while our people persist in their despair. It is beneath our dignity to allow this to continue. And instead of prioritizing the needs of the health sector, the NPP government chooses to acquire drones to supply blood, a decision which has been roundly condemned by many, including the Ghana Medical Association and the Ghana Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists. Government should get its priority right by spending the limited resources on more essential interventions other than copying innovations without relevance to the reality of Ghana's current needs. Ladies and gentlemen, we see the cracks in government accountability. In the throes of the energy crisis, we sought to stabilize the nation's power supply with the Ameri and other power projects. The situation we experienced in those trying times, where we were at the mercy of an acute crisis. And so with these works, we tried to resolve the problem by putting in extra generation. The cumulative effect of underinvestment in the critical infrastructure for power generation across the decades is what landed us in this quandary. We were therefore focused on medium and long-term planning for the energy sector, but we're also keenly aware that more immediate solutions were also necessary. And this critical intervention of bringing emergency generation, which eventually helped us to climb out of the crisis, was ridiculed by our opponents, the NPP. And yet, their own handling of this same project and the furore that it sparked has been abysmal, to say the least. Months down the line, the fundamentals of the government's energy policy have proven to be weak, and the return of doomsday has clearly begun to expose the NPP administration. My brothers and sisters, we see the cracks in the pluralist traditions of our young democracy. We in the NDC have continued to voice genuine concerns about those parts of their policy agenda that have betrayed a gross lack of foresight and a poverty of pragmatic thinking. We have done so to give voice to the frustration of the masses of everyday Ghanaians who seek only to have their own concerns heard and acknowledged. But these constructive criticisms have been ignored by the government that believes itself to have a monopoly on knowledge. The vision of free universal education is a strongly held principle of our Social Democratic Party. Our position of the free SHS policy is contained in the Constitution of this country. We are not in opposition to affordable education, but we believe that it must be implemented properly. Every child in Ghana is entitled by rights to an education that adequately prepares them for the challenges and opportunities of the modern world. And access to secondary education is essential to that. But we also believe that increased access should be matched by increased quality. The implementation of the program and the ad hoc course corrections therefore raises legitimate cause for concern. We have suggested to Nana Akufo-Addo and his government that broader consultation with stakeholders, including the parents of the hundreds of thousands of students whose future depend on our leadership, getting this right, would help the process. These have all been ignored and rubbished as anti-government propaganda and we have been labeled as naysayers. When there's nothing more to do than common sense ideas discussed around the dinner tables of Ghanaian homes and in our offices every day and in our media. These are things that our people are discussing. These are ideas that their own Minister of Finance, who knows the full truth about our fiscal state, has publicly championed. But sadly, the pettiness and insecurity of the government is evident in the absolute refusal to consider these suggestions simply because it is coming from what they think are perceived opponents. So the administration continues on this uncertain road and carries along it with the promise of the future of hundreds of thousands of our young people. The haphazard implementation of the free SHS is causing a lot of anxiety and inconvenience to students and their parents and guardians. And as I've said on the campaign trail a few times, when we come into office, we're going to put in place the necessary measures to better the implementation of the free SHS program. I'll also work hard to abolish the double track system in the shortest possible time. We will do this by investing massively in the expansion of school infrastructure, such as additional classroom blocks and dormitories, and the completion of the 200 community day senior high schools and the 200 community day senior high schools, popularly known as the E-blocks, that we started to enable all our children attend school at the same time and have adequate contact hours with their teachers. Ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing the cracks in the foundation of our economy. The NPP told tall tales with lofty rhetoric about the prospects for our economy. They went to town over my administration's decision to seek financing for infrastructure projects by borrowing on the capital markets. Yet when we did so, it involved a well-planned, well-managed use of the credit facilities to upgrade our ailing physical, social, and economic infrastructure to meet the needs of a modern middle-income economy. And the fruits of those efforts are visible all around the country, in the new clinics and district hospitals, in affordable housing, in the new roads, the railways, in our expanded energy generation, in the mechanization of our agriculture, in access to potable water and electricity, in our telecommunications industry, in aviation, in the expansion of our seaports. These are all visible, tangible results of the borrowing we made from the capital markets. All these and more were made possible by a well-thought-out policy agenda. So many that the government has had to hijack, so many of these projects that the current government has had to hijack some of our projects to commission and recommission all over the place to be able to show something to the Ghanaian people. Our government prized principle over popularity and endeavored to make decisions about every peso borrowed on those grounds of principle. Today, Ghanaians pay far more for fuel and transportation than they paid under the NDC. Unemployment among our youth continued to rise against the backdrop of bankruptcy and collapsing businesses. Importers were promised easier times with reduction on import duties. They've ended up paying far more than they ever paid under the NDC administration. Business associations continue to wail at the impact of the plethora of taxes they are being subjected to. Our people are suffering. Rising poverty levels is creating anxiety, stress, and depression. We knew the NPP had no intention of honoring its lofty promises, but the extent of retrogression is simply unbelievable. We cannot in good conscience let the current state of affairs continue without standing up to do our part. And so, my brothers and sisters, I am ready. I am very ready. And I know you are ready too. Together, we are ready to work hard to provide jobs for our youth, as well as reduce the high cost of living in this country. My brothers and sisters, let me be clear. I myself do not claim perfection. While we remain proud of our record in government and the work we were able to do, we will be the first to admit that there were difficulties with some policies, though well-intentioned, were perhaps misunderstood and could have been implemented differently in order to get better and different outcomes. Those difficulties and lessons drawn from them will inform the formulation and implementation of our future policies when Ghanaians return us to power. We have learned our lessons, and we promise Ghanaians we will do even better. But I will not engage in empty promises, sloganeering, populism, convenient lies, and grand deception to win political power. I will not do that. I may not always say what Ghanaians want to hear. I may not always say what you want to hear. But I will always speak the truth. Every government faces challenges. And the best way to deal with these challenges is to be honest and truthful to the citizens of your nation. Because if you are truthful and honest and they understand the challenges that the government is going through, they are prepared to stand by you in resolving those issues. I, John Dramani Mahama, John Dramani Mahama, I hold Ghanaians in such respect that I will never lie and pretend to them that our situation is good when it is otherwise. I don't promise, I prove, and I deliver. My brothers and sisters, when my party chooses me, and note that I said when, not if, when my party chooses me in the upcoming flag bearer elections, the road towards a better Ghana will gather fresh momentum. There might be no instant victories, but we will give our youth hope by making their need for job and opportunities to market their skills our #1 priority. Upon the conclusion of our presidential primaries, which inshallah we will emerge victorious, we will quickly get together and develop a credible and pragmatic program to ease the hardships and create jobs for our young people. Fellow Akatamansonians, we have hard work before us. We have been there before. And I know it will be tough, but we shall overcome. There will be distractions and petty political maneuvering to discredit us, but we cannot be dissuaded or discouraged. The stakes are too high to lose focus. And let me notify our detractors that it does not matter their penchant for retribution against those who criticize the MPP government, we will speak openly and publicly, come what may. Because we'll be speaking as citizens of this country, and our voice will amplify the concerns and aspirations of the people of Ghana. The DNA of NDC is a combination of two interesting slogans. The first one, never say die until the bones are rotten. And the second one, Ukuma Pema, Apem Baba. My fellow Akatamansonians, my fellow Ghanaians, I thank all of you most sincerely for your presence here in your numbers. This has strengthened and inspired me, and indeed I am humbled by your show of support. I promise you that I'll serve you better than I have ever done before. I am ready for the battle. Come go with me. For united, we shall be victorious. United we stand, divided we fall. I wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, knowing fully well that most Ghanaian families are going to go through the driest Christmas they have ever experienced in the history of Ghana, because they are going through excruciating economic difficulties. We will continue to put pressure on this government to push back on their insensitive economic policies, even as we offer hope of better times under the new ND administration, which, God willing, will assume office on 7 January 2021. With Christ in the vessel, we smile at the storm. I thank you all very much. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. May God bless us all. Thank you.